Well, hello and welcome to the Open Source Firewalls presentation. We are a team from BYU Idaho's online class for CIT270, which is System Security 1, and we will be presenting the research findings and a demo on an open source firewall. The team members are myself, Laura Friedman, Gary Moses, Alvern Woods, and Sterling Sharp. And how we've divided the responsibilities, what we're presenting is that I am doing the introduction, and Alvern Woods is going to be discussing the Windows options for open source firewalls. Gary Moses will be discussing the Linux options, and Sterling Sharp will be presenting the actual demo.
So here's what we have for Windows open source firewalls. We did our research on Google, and what we found is that open source firewalls are not in common use for Windows. We only found 2 within the first page, and what we did find was not impressive. We found Net Defender and Firewall Poppy. As far as Net Defender goes, there's one review on cnet.com which stated that it contained malware, it didn't work with Windows 7, 64-bit, and it did not block any traffic. Not a good firewall. Furthermore, we ran a scan on VirusTotal, and we found 7 hits for malware. You can see them right there. There's a nice looking one called Trojan.generic69. And here's that review. Under pros, none. Under cons, installs unwanted adware without asking. Not promising. Firewall Poppy, the best out of these 2. It passed the virus scan, and we ran it successfully on a Windows 7 virtual machine. Here's what it looks like, pretty basic. And there you can see, it's probably harmless. So with that said, we thought that Linux open source firewalls were much more promising, and Gary's going to take us through that.
Thank you, Alvin. So we looked at some Linux open source firewalls. We found that there were many of them that were available. Some of them were fairly simple and easy to install and operate. Others were much more complex and seemed to have a lot more work involved. There are 7. We're going to take a real quick look at 7 of the major ones that we looked at, and they are pfSense, and that seemed to be a very robust one. Also OPNSense, which was a really good one as well. And there's some of the other ones ending up with Shorewall down at the bottom. But I'm going to go ahead and talk about pfSense. pfSense was the easiest to use and the easiest to build, as you'll see in our demo. It also had a firewall and routing platform. The security updates were small and usually put out bi-weekly. This one we seem to find, for us, seemed to be the very best choice out of the ones that we'd looked at. That pfSense had was it had the very important 2-factor authentication throughout the entire system. It also had built-in reporting and monitoring tools that were really nice so that we could be able to see what was going on while it happened. And then the automatic encryption function for the backup service was a nice add-on as well. Okay, now we're going to go straight on to the demo.
Hi everyone, my name is Sterling Sharp. I'm in the CIT270 class at BYU Idaho in section 5. I'm going to be doing a presentation on pfSense, which is an open source firewall. And let's get started. All right, so first, I'll actually take you through the very beginning step here of the installation. So what you do is you go to pfsense.org, download, select install 64-bit system, and just CD image, then hit download. Obviously, I've already done that. So here we'll go to downloads, and you can see pfSense is there. It downloads it as a GZ file. I just used 7-zip and essentially extract it to this folder here, which has an ISO. So if you're doing this from VMware, you just hit File, New Virtual Machine. We'll go to Custom, Workstation 12, install our disk image or ISO, and we'll browse to pfSense. And next, Other for EBSD, since that's what it's based off of. And we'll change the name for the virtual machine to pfSense. Leave the processors at their standard amount. It really doesn't use too much processing power. If we were actually setting this up on a corporate network, that would be different, of course, right? And for the memory, we'll set it to 4 gigs. The computer has 16, so allocating that much RAM isn't really a big deal. And then we're going to use bridge to networking, which is important in the setup. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about that later. But essentially, we want our operating system to be able to get an IP on the actual network that we're on. Leave that at default. Leave that at default as well. We'll create a new virtual disk. And we'll leave the size at 20 gigs. We'll store it as a virtual disk, or essentially as a single file instead of multiple files. Next. Here you can see an overview of hardware. Everything should be correct, so we'll hit finish. Now we're going to power our virtual machine on. Okay. Give this, I'll just let it automatically boot up. I'm going to check and make sure this video is still recording. Launch the installer by hitting I. Right now we're in the configuration settings. So we're going to leave these at defaults and accept settings. We'll do a quick easy install. If I felt like we needed to erase or format any partitions or anything, I would do a custom install, but there's nothing else on the disk and it will automatically set up all that for us. And here we're just getting that same notification saying that it's going to erase all the contents on the first hard disk, or really the only disk that it can detect in the virtual environment. So we'll say OK. It's going to start installing. Give this a little bit of time. Luckily, it is on an SSD, so it's not too bad. We'll do a standard kernel. And you just have a message saying you may remove the CD, press enter to reboot from the HDD. So we're going to select reboot. Now, actually, as that's getting ready to reboot, I'm going to go into our removable devices and disconnect the CD DVD drive. Just because I want it to boot up off the hard drive and I don't want it picking up that disk and trying to boot from there. All right, so boot 1. So should VLANs be set up now? No. Enter the name or A for auto detection. All right, so no link up detected. So we're just going to use EM0, or essentially that's the interface that it's picking up right now. So enter the LAN interface name, EM0. Enter the LAN interface name, or just enter nothing. We hit enter for this. LAN equals EM0. Do you want to proceed? Yes. Now, one thing I want to make clear about this portion of the setup is if we were actually setting up the firewall to block all of the traffic on our network, we would want to have 2 network adapters, or we could set up 2 network adapters essentially in VMware to do that. But just for demonstration purposes, we'll be setting up the one, and that will allow us to get in and make modifications to our firewall settings for the demonstration. All right, so here you see we have the different options. You'll also see right here our IP version 4 address that we've gotten through DHCP is 192.168.2.237. So we're actually going to go to our browser now. Just going to open up a new one. 2.168.2.2.37. Let me make sure I got that right. No, 237. Yeah. Connection is not secure. Yep, that's because we don't have a legitimate certificate because it's self-signed because it's our own server. And we're just going to confirm the security exception. So log into pfSense. The default username is admin. Password is just pfSense. Let's see. There we go. So now we get an initial configuration prompt. Go to next. I have a gold subscription. We're not interested in that. Next. The host name. You can put in a host name. I'm going to list the name of my host, which is just system2. Leave it at local domain. Primary DNS server, we'll put 8.8.8.8.8.4.4. That's just Google's public DNS servers. Go next. Select our time zone. Next. DHCP. That's what we want. There's quite a few settings here for stack IP configurations and other configurations. You can take a closer look at this if you're interested. But I'm interested in keeping this a little bit shorter. We're just going to kind of go through these. Next. So here you can set up an admin password, which gives you access to the web GUI and also SSH services if they're enabled. I'll just create one. Next. And now we just need to reload so that it can implement those changes. All right, so that's successful. We're going to continue on to pfSense web configurator. So here's our dashboard. We have our name of our host, domain name, just basic information about the version that we're using, DNS servers that are available. That's our default gateway, so it's pointing to one of our default gateways there for the DNS server. And just usage of memory, CPU, other different things. The dashboard's actually pretty cool. If you go through here, you have a cert manager, quite a few other settings that you can see, routing setup for interfaces. We have our LAN interface or other interfaces that you can assign, of course. For firewall, we have our network address translation rules, our specific inbound and outbound rules, virtual IPs, and quite a few other things that you can set up. We have a whole host of services that you can see here, all sorts of things that are pretty neat, really. I'm surprised that they have a load balancer. The pfSense actually is a pretty robust solution. We can set up a VPN if we want. Let's say we wanted to use OpenVPN since that's the open source protocol, right? If you wanted to, you could add the VPN function to the server, and it's actually pretty neat. I might actually try doing this on my own later when I'm not recording a video, just to see how easy or difficult it is. You also have quite a few things under status that you can check here, as well as diagnostics that a lot of these actually are in your typical firewall or router services. But I think what I like the most about pfSense is that it actually combines quite a few other functions than just being a firewall, which I think is great. So one of the things that we're going to look at is specifically will be the rules. We're going to make a firewall rule, and we'll add a rule in. So for our rule, we're going to create a block rule, and we'll have it on our WAN interface, IP4 address family. We'll do TCP for the protocol. All right, so let's actually look up something. List of TCP UDP ports. Go to Wikipedia because it's so reliable and never has errors in it. I'll just go down. Pick a random number. Big Brother. Okay, well, that's an interesting one. So apparently it's the TCP and UDP protocols that we want to block for Big Brother. So that's 1984. Let's see. So for our source, we just select any. Actually select TCP UDP for that. And we'll go to Display Advanced Source Port Range, and we'll do Other. And we'll put in 1984 too. And if we only want to block one, you just fill in the first field. If you wanted to block a range of fields, then you would put something in custom. All right, so for destination, we're going to select any destination address. Actually, no, you know what? We'll select the network address that I'm on, which is just 92.168.2.0. And we're going to select a 24-bit mask since it's a Class C network for 255.255.255.0. And we'll leave the destination port range actually at any, just because even though that's the incoming port, does not mean that that it's the same destination port. Destination ports are dynamic, actually, in a lot of cases. And then for the description, we'll just put something cheesy in there. I don't know, block, Big Brother. And we'll save it. All right, so it's been changed. The changes must be applied for them to take effect. So we're going to apply those changes. Settings have been applied. They're now reloading in the background. All right, we can monitor the reload progress. So it's already been applied. So that's the basics of using pfSense. There's really a lot that you can do with this. I could probably make a several-hour video, but just to keep the time down, I'll end it right here. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and thank you for your time.